So you've launched your podcast and you'd like to continue building your credibility as an expert. One strategy to help you do so is to be featured as a guest on another podcast show. Today on the Established Show, I'm going to interview Christina Lenkowski, a PR expert who helps entrepreneurs get featured onto podcast shows, so all they have to do is show up and talk. If you are interested in learning how to be a guest, then let's get into the interview. Well, Christina, thank you so much for joining the show again today. Can you please take a moment and introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. My name is Christina Lenkowski, and I am a podcast strategist. And essentially, I really help thought leaders, speakers, and authors go from best kept secret to the go-to expert in their industry by being a guest on other people's podcasts.
Amazing. And I'm so glad to have Christina on the show. We've already talked a lot behind the scenes, and we're talking so much amazing strategy that I know is going to be very relevant and helpful for growing a lot of shows of my clients. And so Christina and I actually met at a conference recently, a marketing conference, and we connected because we're really working with the same clientele, authors, speakers, and thought leaders. I asked her, I said, you have information my clients need, so we're going to talk about it if that's cool with you. So again, thank you for joining. I know how valuable your time is. So Christina, can you just kind of give us a quick lowdown on your experience in PR and how you got into podcast pitching?
So I've been in the PR game for well over a decade, actually about 15 years total. But I was in it for about 10 years for working at various agencies all around the country, worked for like Cirque du Soleil, all the way down to mom and pop stores, like in the state where I live, Idaho. So kind of doing all kinds of different things all over the place. And then I had my daughter, and I decided that, this was about 6 years ago, that I was going to go into consulting, go off on my own, because I just couldn't be a senior account exec, for a PR agency while I was also trying to be a parent, I found, for me personally. And so my particular area of expertise was tourism PR. So that was, the area that I really loved and kind of what I enjoyed teaching. And I would go all around the country and speak on that. And so I decided that I was going to do an online course. Like, I'm doing an online course. I'm going to sell it to cities and municipalities and this and that. And so I did. And even though I had been in PR at that point for a really long time, when I launched my first course, I was like, well, I got to do what all these gurus are saying. And I just need to do some ads and some webinars, and like publicity wasn't even a part of the equation, And so I was like, well, this is how they say to do it, so I'm going to do it. And it was a huge flop. Like it didn't go well, to put it mildly. And so the next time I launched, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this my way. And so I started to get myself booked on podcasts, started to do some other publicity work, and the difference was monumental. I had people pursuing me as opposed to me feeling like I was always chasing clients. That was huge, and the other thing about publicity is, I had been dumping all this money into ads. And it's not that ads are a bad thing. They just all need to work together. Mm-hmm. And so I've been doing this, whereas publicity doesn't cost anything. It's something that I could do, that I could get out in front of people. There was no exchange of money that was happening for me to be on these shows. And yeah, it absolutely changed the course of my business. So when I saw this huge impact that it had, I decided that this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to help other entrepreneurs, be able to attract people naturally. And that was by showing who they were through being a guest on podcasts.
That's amazing. And I love your story because I just feel like you've had so much experience, and you've really, you've had these situations where you've tried what everyone says to do and, pay for the ads, create the webinars. There's so many funnels that you can build. And that's absolutely the thing, right? There's so many different ways you can paint a picture, but that's why I feel like you and I connect so much, because we love podcasting. We love the power, because really it's about building genuine connection and just finding the right audience. And then I personally don't think that's as risky as running ads, making all that ad spend to do that. Like, I'm not that risky. I want to know that what I invest in is going to work.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I mean, to break it down a little further so people are very clear, your marketing has three pillars, three areas, three pieces of that pie. And that's earned, owned, and paid. And, you know, uh, uh, at the beginning, I was focusing so much on the paid and the owned. So the paid being ads, that type of stuff, the owned being my social media channels, my website, that type of stuff. And then the earned is what people get really scared to do. They get really nervous about doing the earned work because there's not a guarantee. You might do pitching and something might not come of that. When you spend money on an ad, you have a distinct ROI. You're able to say, this is how much this costs, for me to bring someone into my world or whatever. But the thing is, when someone comes into your world through an earned avenue, they are further down your funnel than someone who comes in cold. So if someone who listens to me on here today and they decide, hey, I like that chick, like I like what she has to say, I want to hear more from her, and they join my e-newsletter, they're already a little bit more, I shouldn't say a little bit more, they're way more primed than someone who maybe found me on an ad and is just coming in and doesn't really know me at all.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I was talking about it in another interview. We're saying when you have interviews on a podcast, you're introducing someone to your audience. So think of all the people, all of my clients, my networks, and now I'm interviewing you. And so, if they trust me and I trust you, then it's just, it goes down the line like that and vice versa. So that's what I really am excited about bringing to my clients. Once a lot more people, they get their more episodes in and up. So we're really building their brand. The next step, you guys, you need to pitch yourself onto podcasts because you are going to tap into other people's audiences with your ideal listeners. And so that's what Christina helps people to do. So Christina, if somebody works with you, what can they expect with your process and kind of what do you need from them to get onto a show?
Yeah, absolutely. I work in a 4-month process at the beginning with any of my clients. That's what the contract is that we have. And the first month is dedicated to, we have a kickoff call. We create all kinds of assets, the things that I need to pitch, a one sheet, my pitch template, all kinds of different things. And then months 2 through 4 is when me and my team start doing all the pitching. And so that's when you start to get these fun emails that come through that say booking and then the name of the show. And then, either picking a day or just whatever, moving forward from there. But that's the thing that I think my private clients in particular love is that they don't have to do all the research and all the pitching and all this and that. They are able to just show up, they know what podcasts are going to be on. Hopefully they listen to it beforehand. That's my advice to them. And then they show up and they shine. And that's it. Obviously I'd love for them to continue the relationship with the host if there's a connection, to make sure and follow up with them. But, it just taking a lot of the time of pitching out for them. They're able to kind of do the fun part. Like when I was growing up, my mom was like a horse, like she's a big horse person, like horse, 4-H horse judge and all this. And I loved riding horses, but I hated doing the prep work. Like I hated the brushing and the picking the feet and, this and that. And my mom was like, well, this is just a part of, riding horses. And I was like, well, I don't want to do it anymore because I like this part, but I don't love this part. And so, cause I loved the riding, like if I could have just been born super rich where someone did all that for me and I just got to ride, like that would have been amazing. But alas, that was not my life story. So, I kind of equated to that. Like we're going to do all the grunt work on the front end and make sure that you're getting in front of the right audience so that you're just showing up, shining, connecting with people, connecting with the host, and then able to have that piece of content moving forward. Anyone can pitch. It is very true. I want to make sure for my students and my clients, they're pitching at a high level, but you can do that. It's just, but it does take time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And from my experience, I've also pitched clients. I've gotten them on shows and stuff, but it really does require a skill again. And that's what I say about podcasting too, because anyone can start a podcast, sure. Anyone can start any of the things that I do, but there's skill, there's strategy, you have, and it definitely helps that you've been doing this a while because also these aren't just Joe Schmo podcasts that you're getting your clients on. right?
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit on the quality of the shows that you're able to get?
My main goal for any of my clients, you spoke to the strategy, and that's the key thing, is there has to be strategy behind this work that we're doing. And that's when you start a podcast like you do with your clients, making sure that it's something that makes sense for their audience. And it's the same for me. The first thing I'm going to ask the client when I start working with them is, who is that ideal customer for you? And what is it that you're trying to drive them to? Because we want to make sure that we're getting you in front of the right people, and we want to make sure that we're coming up with topics that bridge the gap between maybe where they are when they start listening to the show versus having to go find out more from you, find out where they can grab your download or start following you on social or whatever. I've gotten my clients on great shows like the Heather Sager Show, Get Paid with Claire Pelletreau, Course Creation Boutique. These are great, great, great shows, but I don't focus on the number of downloads. So that's always one thing that I make really clear to my clients, like before they start working with me, because if someone comes to me and says, well, I only want to be on shows with XYZ downloads, that's not how this works. First of all, I don't know. I don't know how many downloads a host has on their show. That's not public information. Only the host knows that information. So that's not something that I even know. But beyond that, I want to make sure that the content and the quality is what I want it to be at, because people get all hung up on this. Like if they were to find out maybe that a show had like 100 downloads, okay, and they're like per episode, and they're like, well, I don't know if I want to spend my time, doing that. And it's the perfect audience, for them. Okay. If someone were to call me up and say, Christina, we have this event coming up. You're going to get to speak in front of a room of 100 of your ideal customers. You better believe I'd be booking that flight, getting that hotel room. I would be there, because getting to talk to 100 of my ideal customers, and actually they're only paying attention to me, like in that moment, like they're hearing me in a group, or they're hearing me in their AirPods or something like that. That's huge. That's huge. And I would rather do that 10 times out of 10 than be in front of 1,000 people that don't care at all about what I have to say or what I'm doing. So I always stress people to remember that, is that it's the quality of the audience and what that host is bringing to their audience, as opposed to just a numbers game.
And that's funny that you say 100. In my head, I was thinking, honestly, if there's 5 of my ideal clients, I'm there, because I'm going to close 1 or 2 of them. And even right.
And especially with podcasting, because like you just have to show up at that time, at your computer. Like, it's not like you have to do all this other stuff, to go do that. It's like you show up and you get to have a conversation with someone. And it's recorded, and then, they're getting it out there to people.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm so excited to have this conversation, because I just know that you're really going to come into play in a lot of my client strategies, because this is the next step after you're creating your show, which is what I help my clients do with Effortless Engine. I'm a part of that, the media that you're creating, the content that you're putting out there, getting your voice established. And then Christina helps to spread your message to other audiences, which, and that's why I'm glad that we're talking, because I can't do it all in my company, because it's a huge strategy. And what you do takes so much time, because that's the thing. These podcast shows, they're not just going to let anybody on to the show that they've built, this audience. You have to really know how you're going to deliver value to that show. It's not about you. Again, not about you. It's about the listener and what you can help them do.
Yes. I love that you just said that, because that is a huge, huge thing that I teach my students and I talk to my clients about. We are always going in with a mindset of service over self-promotion. Always. That is what podcast hosts want you on there to do. They're going to give you an opportunity at the end to talk about, what maybe something that you have coming up or where people can find you, that type of stuff. That's going to happen. But you need to be going in there, bringing actionable steps, value pack, that type of thing. And that's what makes all the difference. Absolutely. And one thing I want to say too, just for your clients, is that having your own podcast is a huge plus for other hosts. Possibly you could do a swap which is awesome. If that makes sense, you could have them on your show, you go on their, et cetera, et cetera. But also it shows that how to talk, how to have, a podcast episode and how to do that work. So it's definitely a big plus for hosts that you have your own.
That makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I guess I just assumed that you only pitch people who have a show. I didn't even think that you could be pitched without a show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't have a show and I go on podcasts all the time. Yeah, you definitely don't. I have many, I'd say half my clients don't have their own shows.
Okay.
And then have to.
Well, that's good to know too, because I really did think that was just a prereq to get pitched. Okay. Yeah. That's good to know. And I know what you mean, because even just having my own show and having my episodes out, and people know that, okay, I know what I'm talking about on this topic. And so then just creating that content and putting it out into the world. And so that listeners and people know, my specialty, and same with my clients. You have to create the content so people know what's in your head and they can hear and listen. And then it helps them determine who they can share this message with. Mm-hmm. And so, Christina, can you speak a little bit about, do you have any examples from your own experience or your clients from after they got onto the show? Kind of how did that help their business and their services?
Absolutely. I mean, I have tons of examples of that, and like I said at the beginning, for me personally, in my business scene, I go on quite a few, it's very meta, I go on quite a few podcasts myself to talk about podcasts and podcast guesting. But, I have people that seek me out from podcasts. And the beauty of it is they seek me out even months down the road, because that's how people are with podcasts. You find one that you like and you binge, podcasts you might listen to multiple months back because you really like this host and, kind of what they have to say and stuff like that. So I think that's like one of the best is I'll just, have someone book a discovery call or get an email that's like, hey, I heard you on blah, blah, blah. I've done that. I did that like 6 months ago, but they just heard it and now they want to connect. And I think that's one thing that's really cool is kind of that ongoing work. But yes, in regards to my clients as well, they've seen huge upticks upticks at least in like people joining their list, following them on social media. Those type of things absolutely happen. It's something that's going to help build that credibility, that visibility. And that's kind of the big thing that I like to stress. It absolutely helps with list building, but really you need to be looking at it as like this is really going to get me out there and make sure that people know that I'm the expert on this particular subject.
Mm-hmm. So how many interviews do you think someone needs to be planning into their schedule? Let's say, I don't know, every month or every quarter. What do you recommend?
I love to be on an average of 2 a month. That's kind of what I think is a really great spot, and if you think about that, that's over 20 interviews in a year. And that's pretty awesome to have all those logos on your website that are like, I've been featured here, 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 and here. Now, with that being said, they don't necessarily average out to that. So that's what I mean is like, I might, and don't stress about that. I might do a period of where I'm interviewing more or I'm interviewing at my normal pace, but like 3 episodes come out in the same week. And then one comes out, like a week later. Like it all, and then the next month, nothing comes out. Like, like it all kind of depends on how that particular host works and their schedule and stuff like that. So that's why I say I try to have like an average of that. But I mean, it's not like they have to be coming out like this certain amount apart and XYZ. I tend to try to be doing 2 interviews a month. And when they come out, they come out.
Okay, that makes sense. If somebody is sold on podcast interviews and they said, yes, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people listening don't want to figure out how to actually do it. Because let me tell you, it's hard. It takes a lot of time.
Yes.
It takes a lot of strategy. Yeah. So if they are interested and they'd like to work with you, can you speak a little bit about that process and where they can connect with you for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a few ways that people can work with me. One is that I have a VIP day, and that's really made for people that have a team member that they'd like to do pitching on their behalf. Mm-hmm. So like, I might have like my VA or something do pitching. So what we do is we spend the whole day getting all the assets ready, and then we actually do a one-on-one training with that staff member. So that's one way that people can work with me. Another way is through my signature service that we've talked about, which is the podcast pitch broker service. And that's where we do everything, other than the interview itself, we do it all. And so that's another way for people to work with me. I love doing that work. We love doing that work, getting people on podcasts. And generally that's what a lot of entrepreneurs prefer, because, they're like, okay, I'm ready to just have you do it. Like, okay, that's fine.
Exactly.
And then, for people though that are wanting to just do it themselves, which, hey, I've been there, I've done it myself for a long time. I also teach a monthly masterclass, a 2-hour live training all about how to pitch yourself to podcasts. And that includes how to do it. This is where to get started. This is where to research. Here are some templates, swipes, that type of thing as well.
Oh, I love that. I definitely can think of some clients of mine who maybe they want to do it themselves also.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. I'm glad you have that resource. Well, Christina, thank you so much for, again, joining me on the show today.
Thank you.
So glad that you got to share all of this knowledge with my audience. And I'll put all the information down below so anyone can connect with Christina and check out all of the services she has to offer. If you would like to discuss your content marketing strategy with me, please visit effortlessengine.com. We'll help you power your message into new territory. What are you waiting for? The world is waiting to join your journey.